That's why these two guys here, these are the men I want as my friends. They're the new blood.
It's that time of the week, everyone. It's time for the Detroit Sports Podcast. We are at episode number 45 of the DocNJock Sports Show. Joining me is my cousin Adam Strozinski.
You can call me Freddie Tugboat.
I am the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz? What's going on?
I'm miserable today. I hate life. I love this show, but if I had a flamethrower right now, I'd set everything on fire and I'd dance around pygmy style. It's been a rough couple days here.
So, are you having a worse week than the Spanish national soccer team, or are you doing a little bit better?
I don't know if it can get much worse than that.
Bounced from the World Cup after winning it 4 years ago and losing both games, cuz. That's pretty surprising, huh?
You know what, going into it, they were basically penciled in to, I think, to at least make it to a medal round, and everybody talked about how this was like the team of the decade and how they were great. They just didn't show up.
Cuz I never thought of a day where I would be flipping through the channels, the Tigers game is on versus Kansas City, and I'm thinking, oh, do I really want to watch my Tigers, or should I just sit and watch the World Cup? Because the games in soccer have been epic, and my Tigers are just epically collapsing in a way that is so disappointing and is tough to watch, cuz. And we're going to hit on the Tigers this podcast. We're going to get a chance to talk to Jeff Deacon from the Detroit Sports Nation, and we're also going to get a chance to chat with Denny Mclain regarding what has been going on with this team. Cuz last week, at the end of the podcast, if you stay tuned and listened, I snuck a question in there because in my gut, I had a feeling when we had the 4-game set versus Kansas City, we might not be in first place. And I asked you, hey, are we going to be in first place by episode 45? And you said, hanging on by a thread. Well,
that thread snapped.
It's done. Right now, we are in second place in the AL Central, coming off of 3 straight losses to the Kansas City Royals. So, how disappointed are you in terms of the play with the Tigers?
They deserve it. Let's be honest, they deserve it. They've played like shit. They look like garbage. They are painful to watch. I don't feel bad for them. I don't feel sad for them. They deserve it. They look horrible. They're a bad product. I went to the game on Friday, last Friday, for Polish Heritage Night. For those who don't know, I'm Polish. All right, I went there. You know what I did? I didn't even watch the game. I didn't even watch it. They're so bad. They're difficult to watch. I sat there, walked around, drank a couple beers, got slightly loaded, ran around screaming Poposku to everybody, and I just sat there and hung out and mingled with people. I was shaking hands. You know, I am a man of the people. And that's all I was doing, just being a man of the people. They're hard to watch.
There's so many layers that we got to talk about, cuz. Let's just start with the obvious problem, the starting pitching. I mean, you cannot...
Dumpster fire?
Yeah, you cannot be competitive in Major League Baseball when your 2 stars, Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, start off the series versus Kansas City and get shelled. I mean, Max Scherzer gave up 7 runs in the second inning. We have no chance of winning the game.
These are guys who want to make $25 million, in excess of that, per year.
Show me the money.
And they're out there pitching like they belong in AAA. How are you going to justify those contracts? Verlander's coming up upon a $28 million contract for 5 years.
Because how much of it is the Tigers pitching and how much is the Kansas City is just on a streak like no other?
It's the Tigers pitching. They look bad. They look really bad. They're not hitting their spots. They're not throwing the ball well. And here's the thing. Justin Verlander, you know what Verlander got by on for so many years? He got by on power. He's a power pitcher. The guy will sit there and he will dial it up to 100. Well, what do you do now when you have no more power? When you can't dial it up to 100 when you need to dial it up to 100? What happens? Verlander was never a pitcher. He's always been a thrower. So unless he reinvents himself in some miraculous way, I think his career might be done. Because all he does is he gets up there and he just throws the ball hard. And he can't throw it hard anymore. His velocity's going away. So he needs to reinvent himself or we're on the hook for the next 5 years with a crippling contract.
Yeah, I read on ESPN they did a great piece on what is wrong with Justin Verlander. Because in the past, when Justin Verlander got ahead with a 2-strike count, virtually unhittable. In the last couple seasons, hitters are hitting his fastball and getting on base more with 2-strike counts. And so he's getting knocked around a little bit. He's walking more batters. His velocity is slightly down from his prime years. And it's just very worrisome because everyone's starting to think, has Justin Verlander been pitching since he was 24 years old, giving us 200 innings plus for so many consecutive seasons now. He's age 31 years old. How much left does he have in the tank? Can he give us productive years? Is he a guy that can struggle in the regular season and then dial it up in the playoffs? Now, he has the last couple of seasons, but how many times can you go to that well? I mean, he's getting knocked around. The thing is this. People are saying, well, is it his mechanics? Is it some outside influences going on? Well, obviously you can see this. He's throwing a lot of meatballs, meaning that his fastballs are like over the heart of the plate, and professional hitters can knock that around. That's easy. Professional hitters can hit fastballs, and so if your fastball is under 94 and you're getting behind in the count, it's going to be hard for you to get guys out. The whole Justin Verlander thing is puzzling a little bit, but at the same time you can understand that he's logged a lot of miles. He's come off of an injury in the offseason. He had surgery on his ribs, so he might not be in form just yet. So while I'm concerned, I am cautiously optimistic that he can turn it around. Maybe it might take longer than in previous seasons, but he will come back.
To the most telling stat when you look at his numbers? In his prime, when he was blowing away guys, winning Cy Youngs, and looking like the old Justin Verlander, the one who struck fear in the hearts of every batter at the plate, if you look at his K-to-9 ratio, it was somewhere near 10. He was usually 9.5, 9.6, 9.7, right around 10, all right, which is great. That means he's striking out at least one batter per 9 innings, which is unbelievable. If you look at it now, he's somewhere down around 6, 6.5 if he's lucky. I mean, it's a dramatic flip-flop from where he was 2 years ago. I mean, I think we might have seen the best of Justin Verlander. I don't know if he's got another 2012 season left in his body. I don't think he can dial it up anymore, and I don't think he can do the things that are necessary for him to be an ace of this staff. And same thing with Scherzer. I don't know if it's just Scherzer's not getting the run support. If Scherzer's always been one of those guys, though, where he sits there and he stumbles around for a little bit, and he kind of looks like he's flailing out there. You send him down for the minors for a little bit, and he just kind of works on a few things, comes back up, and he's right as rain. So is this another situation with Scherzer where he just needs to be tweaked a little bit, and he'll be good as gold? I'm not really sure, but I think Verlander might be done. He might be done, and I think we're going to regret this contract that we've got to now facilitate coming up in the next 5 years. And he's got a player option for $22 million on the end of those 5 years. So if he still wants to hang around and be a nuisance and he can't get the job done, he can say, yeah, please cut me a check for $22 million. Thank you.
Because when you're losing, a bunch of things get talked about and a bunch of issues come about. How upset were you? How concerned were you where you seen the picture of him with the mall with his girlfriend, Kate Upton, on a Monday, a couple hours before his appearance? I mean, some people have made an issue of, well, when exactly was the photo taken? But, it just leads to the question of whether, was he as prepared as he could be for a start when you're hanging out with Kate Upton just hours before a start, going into a pivotal series versus your rival who's trying to knock you off of first place?
I think that just might point to where his head's at right now, especially in his life. Because
can you blame him though? Listen,
I understand.
Some people you get a pass for.
I understand.
If you're going with Kate Upton, I can understand a little bit if you're distracted, because every time I see a photo of Kate Upton with Justin Verlander, I couldn't tell you what Justin Verlander's wearing. I couldn't tell you what he looks like, what's in the picture. All I know is he's looking at Kate Upton, and in that photo, she's looking at the person taking the photo like kind of like with a glance, like, I know you're taking a picture of me. What are you looking at? It's kind of funny.
I understand that, but you're a professional athlete. Do you know how much hot tail you get? How much hot tail you've had? I mean, I understand she's Kate Upton, and for many guys, she's like a 15 on a scale of 1 to 10. I get it. But you're a professional athlete. Your job is to go out there and win games. You're getting paid to win games. So I just don't think his mind's right. I really don't. I think he might need a small sabbatical away from the game just to get his head right. Because if you much rather be out with your girlfriend buying clothes than in the clubhouse preparing for a game, then what are you doing? Why are you here? Here's the thing. I know for me, all right, and let's be honest, I don't play at a high level of anything, all right? But I know when I go and I play sports, I have a routine. I have a certain way of doing things. I like to get to the arena at a certain time, and it just helps me get focused and dialed in. You're a professional athlete. You've been doing the same exact thing over and over and over and over. This is your routine. This is how you prepare. This is how you get into the game. This is how you get into game mode. So if you want to take time to go shopping How does that interfere with what you have going on that day, where you need to be someplace in 4 hours on the mound trying to throw 100 miles an hour? How? It's not working. I don't think his mind's in the right place. And if your mind's not in the right place, your body's not going to follow. And I just don't think his body has the ability to do what it used to do. So he definitely needs to get his mind right so his body can at least perform at whatever level it can perform for him to be the best that he can be.
But can you look at it maybe this way? Maybe he's just trying to change up the routine. I mean, maybe he's just so dialed in, so focused on baseball that, you know what, some guys maybe take vacations, some guys do something to try to get their mind away from the game.
Does he look dialed in?
He looks like he's trying everything he can to do.
Does his stat line show that he's dialed in at all? Because I'll tell you this much, his stat line sure as hell doesn't look like he's dialed in.
No, I think
he looks like a disaster out there.
I think it's one of those situations where he's obviously known for being a hard worker. No teammates ever call him out or question his ability to put in the time. I just think that maybe sometimes when you're gripping, you try to do things maybe.
I feel like you're a Tiger apologist right now.
No, I'm just trying to think like what would cause you to go to the mall on a game day. But some people say, well, you know what, these guys are normal human beings and they don't have to be in the clubhouse till 3 or 4 o'clock. And so he went early in the morning with the mall with Kate Upton. But, I think most Tiger fans and me and you kind of agree that if it was us, we'd be in the film room as soon as we can get in there looking at the batters that you're going to go up against tonight and try to get them out. But, some people just aren't, at that point when, when you've been doing it for so long and you're getting paid that much money, maybe his motivation is not where it should be. But I just think he's trying to get away from it. He's trying to grip. And I think that he's trying to do something to maybe change up the flow a little bit.
Let me ask you a question. You played sports when you were in high school. I played sports in high school. I still play sports. When you play sports, what is the one objective that you're out there to do?
My number one objective is to win.
Okay. So your job is to win. You're going to do whatever it takes to win. All right? Has he ever won a championship?
No, he has not.
So that should be the only driving force in his life right now is to win a championship. If you want to be the best, you want to go out as the best, if everything in your legacy and everything in your ego is to be the best, be number one. Because if you ever talk to him, he talks about himself like he's God's gift to pitching. Like he's the guy who basically invented it. So if you ever talk to him, you don't have a World Series ring around your finger. You've not won a World Series. You've gone a couple times and you've looked like garbage. So if your goal is to be the best, at least go out there and win at least one. And then come and talk to me and tell me that you're the best.
Man, what a shame would it be if we don't, in this generation, don't get a World Series out of this team. It would be.
I think this window's closing.
It's closing soon.
Quick.
Obviously, that was a big talking point. And then after Wednesday's loss, Brad Ausmus makes a joke regarding battered women. I mean, he immediately apologized. And for those of you who didn't hear it, he was asked, how are you handling this loss? What are you going to do? And he basically came out and said, well, I'm going to beat my wife. And he said it jokingly, and he immediately thought about what he said and apologized. And now he's getting some flack, and obviously that's kind of his first kind of uh-oh moment in a press conference. What was your thought when you heard that after Wednesday's loss to Kansas City?
I'll be honest with you, I kind of snickered. A little giggled.
Snickered?
Yeah,
Come on.
A little bit to myself. Just because I remember having conversations with my grandfather. My grandfather ran a bar, so a lot of my humor is bar humor. And I just remember some of the jokes that he would tell me as a child. So I just kind of snickered to myself. And I was like, as a manager, you can't say those things. You can't go to the media and you can't say things like that. If you want to joke about that with a few of the writers who you're good buddies with, okay. You want to joke about that with maybe some of the players in the locker room, okay. But you can't just, no. That's unacceptable. You can't do that. You can't say something like that. You look like an asshole. You can't do that.
And yeah, you definitely can't do that because that one offends all the women out there. And you can't, there's some things you can't make light of and you can't make jokes about in public. And that is probably one of the bigger ones. So he immediately apologized. It's his first kind of mistake, his first kind of fallen moment. But he is coming off of a really tough stretch with this team, and so it can be definitely frustrating to answer the same questions over and over again, but you just got to maintain the status quo. Hopefully this team will turn it around, because do you think that in the next couple weeks we're going to see improved play with these Tigers, or are we going to be mired in this kind of 9-20 losing streak for a longer period of time?
Something has to happen. I mean, they're hard to watch. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I normally like, when I'm busy running errands throughout the day or whatever, I usually like to turn on the ball game and I like to listen to Dan and Jim sit there and kind of fill me in on what's going on with these Tigers. No. I'll sit there, I'll put Kesha on. I'll listen to Kesha and make my ears bleed instead of listening to that crap. They're hard to listen to and they're hard to watch. So something has to change. Something. And I don't think Dave Dombrowski's a very good general manager. He's made a few questionable moves this year that I think are now starting to rear their ugly head, but he's a good general manager overall. I think he will make moves, and I don't know if they'll be sooner than later, but I think he will make the proper moves. I think he's going to grab Ausmus, sit Ausmus down, have a talk with Ausmus. You got to remember, Ausmus, he's a rookie. This is his first year, and he's not only playing in the big leagues, they basically gave him a loaded gun and said, hey, go win us the World Series. And at this point, he's kind of shot himself in the foot once, almost shot himself in the foot twice, and he's put a couple holes through a few walls in the house. So they might have to take that big gun away and maybe have to give him a little bit smaller one, put him on a little bit of a leash, and say, hey, you need to go do this, you need to figure this out. But something's got to happen.
Look at how cockeyed this losing streak has been. You get semi-decent quality starts from Anibal Sanchez and Drew Smyly. And then the offense goes stale. And then you got your aces of the staff, Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, and they're getting shelled. And so they're giving up 6+ runs, not giving you a chance to win. So that's kind of tough to take and tough to swallow, knowing that Anibal Sanchez is going out there giving you quality starts and you're giving him 0-1 run. Drew Smyly only gives up 2 runs versus Kansas City, and you only get 1 home run from J.D. Martinez. That cannot happen. The team has to balance itself out. When we have a good pitching performance, it needs to be coupled with great hitting performances. And so it just seems like right now everything's kind of going against the Tigers. And a lot of people are just saying, well, this happens in baseball. But if this doesn't get corrected really quick, we're going to be looking at being 5-6 games out rather quickly going into July. And I don't think we can come back from that.
Here's the thing. I'm one of those people who said these streaks happen in baseball. I've been basically beating that drum since this streak started. At some point, though, this streak has to come to an end. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. You believe almost a month ago, we were sitting there talking about how great the Tigers were. And basically, the moment that we had stopped saying how great they were and how awesome a run they were on, the wheels have just totally fallen off the cart. I mean, it seems like it's been a month. I don't know the exact time. I don't have the exact days. But it sure as hell feels like it's been a month that they've been on a slide.
What the hell is that about?
That's a long-ass time. A whole month? You can basically take a whole month off from baseball. Let's be honest, they've basically taken a whole month off. They're not showing up to the ballpark. They're not playing. How do you take a whole month off and then sit there and say, hey, you know what? We're going to try to dial this back up and we're going to try to win this thing.
Yeah.
At some point, it's got to stop. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I look to the manager to make that happen. I'm going to put a lot of blame on Ausmus. I really am. Because, you know what? I've been sitting there, been fumbling around trying to figure out what the hell's going wrong with this team. And who can be blamed for this issue? All right? Is it the players? Is it the leadership in the locker room? Is it just one of those stretches where everything just kind of goes bad and you just can't figure it out? It just, for whatever reason, it happens. Sometimes those things happen in sports. At this point, though, I'm ready to blame Ausmus. Yes, the pitching's bad, okay? You're going to have rough nights. Yes, the bats go cold sometimes. That's going to happen. You have cold nights. This stretch has gone on way too long for it to be just one of those stretches in baseball. At this point, Ausmus has to do something to get to these guys, to talk to them. I don't care if he goes in there, he takes a water cooler, and he sits there and hurls it at the wall, and it almost hits Victor Martinez and gets Miguel Cabrera all wet. I don't care. Somebody has to go in there, somebody has to spark their asses, light a fire underneath them, do something. And I'm going to put it on Ausmus. He's the manager. Here's the thing. I don't like drawing the comparison to Jim Leyland. I don't like it. 2 different managers at 2 different points in their careers. All right, you've got one who's just starting, one who is at the end. One's a little bit older, gruffer guy. One's young. Leyland seems more like he's East Coast. Ausmus is very much West Coast. 2 different guys, polar opposites, all right? But the one thing Leyland wouldn't do, Leyland wouldn't sit there and he wouldn't let one of these streaks go on. He would have sat there, he'd either pulled them into a room and had a closed-door meeting with them. He'd have said something through the media just to sit there and either anger them or just try to get some reaction. I just want a reaction out of these players. Leyland would have done something to help change the culture of this losing streak. And at this point, these players look lifeless. They don't look like they're even in tune to what's going on or like they even want to be there. At some point, you need to get something out of these players, some type of reaction. Jumpstart them. Kick them in the ass. You know, it's like you're laying on the floor, you had a heart attack and you're dying. Somebody needs to come in with the defibrillators and say clear and jumpstart you. That's all they need. They've got the talent.
Do you think it was too early? I had tweeted out after the second game versus Kansas City. I had tweeted out versus after Max Scherzer gave up the 7th spot, do you think Jeff Jones deserved to take the X for these awful pitching performances from the top 2 guys? Do you think maybe there's something internally going on that may be permeating through the clubhouse that might be affecting this team, and maybe a change in, sometimes just a change for, the sake of making a point may help the pitching staff out? What are your thoughts about that?
If you look at everything that Jeff Jones has done, he's basically helped 2 pitchers win a Cy Young. All right, one of those pitchers won an MVP. He's taken a guy like Porcello and helped him have, at certain points of this year, basically his breakout year. So I don't think there's anything wrong with Jeff Jones. I think Jeff Jones is fine. I think he's okay. I think this points to the players. I think this is on the players. At this point, I think the players have to figure out what is going on either with them in their personal lives and why they're bringing that into the clubhouse, what's going on with these players when they're at the clubhouse, and why their play isn't translating into wins. This is, I think, a player issue. I don't think this is a Jeff Jones issue. Jeff Jones, look at Anibal Sanchez. That guy looks like he's lights out. If you want to pick anybody to be our ace right now, it's Anibal. Drew Smiley's doing a very decent job stepping in as who was supposed to be our 5th starter. He's pitched very well in stretches. Rick Porcello, in large stretches of the season, has looked very good. Your 2 big guns, though, are kind of off doing their own thing. So you might need to ground them and try to figure something out with those 2 guys. I don't think this is a Jeff Jones issue.
Listen, I want to try to look a little bit for some light while in these cloudy waters that we're looking at here with the Tigers. We got a couple rookies that may be potentially everyday players in Eugenio Suarez and J.D. Martinez.
I like both those guys.
Those kids have stepped up
and have, shockingly good.
Yeah, they've been playing pretty well, and so we talked a little bit about it, and I wrote a little bit something about it in terms of what do you think, just in general, would you keep Suarez and keep his bat, or would you rather have a shortstop like Iglesias, who's gonna figure to be between a 280 and 320 hitter, but is more stellar defensively? I'm just thinking that at some point in time, will they shop Suarez? Because it's going to be hard to trade Iglesias while he's hurt. His value is dipped. And if this team right now continues on this path, you might have to be a seller at the trade deadline in order to maybe improve the team in terms of maybe. I don't want to sound blasphemous. I don't want to sound any alarms. But if you can trade Suarez and you can potentially trade Max Scherzer to significantly improve the team in the next couple of years, I'm talking about maybe getting 4 solid players for those 2 guys. 4 everyday solid players, I might start considering it, because you got to think, how are we going to improve this team? You need help in the bullpen. You got rookies playing in several key positions. What are your pieces that you have to trade?
All right, first off, I think your price is a little bit high. I think 4 players for those 2 guys, a little bit high. All right, so maybe pump the brakes there a little bit. Here's the thing. I like Suarez. I think he's a good player. I don't want to get too geared up on him right away. Let's see kind of how he progresses. Give him another month. See if he cools off any. You don't want him. You don't want Suarez to be like a Brennan Bosch. Brennan Bosch comes in, looks really good, hits really well, and then next thing you know, his batting average just dips and goes straight to the ground. So you don't want to sit there and possibly sell off pieces that might later translate and hurt you. So if you want to say you're going to sell Jose Iglesias, you said he's hurt, but there might still be a call out there for a player like him, and you're going to sit there and pin all your hopes on Suarez. Don't do that. I wouldn't do that. I don't know what Suarez's ceiling is yet. I want to see what his ceiling is. He might prove to be, when Kinsler leaves, when Kinsler's contract runs out here, he might be the guy you plug in at second base. And how do you like that up the middle? You've got Iglesias on one side and you got Suarez on the other. How do you like that? That sounds really good. One guy who hits for average, one guy who's got a little bit more power. Sounds really nice, and they're both really good defensively. And then you got Cabrera forever will be over on first base. And Castellanos, if he can figure out how to play a little bit of defense, it'll be even better. It'll be awesome. So I wouldn't sell that. And Max Scherzer, everything that has been done to this point has been for these Tigers to win a World Series. So Max Scherzer gives you a better shot to win a World Series than not having Max Scherzer. So I don't think you're trading him. And I don't think his trade value is going to be extremely high, because you don't have extra years on him. It's basically you'll get him for like 40, 50, 60 games, and then he's walking out that door. So I don't think Scherzer is going to bring you what you would like in a trade, and I don't think Scherzer is going anywhere, because I think this team is built to have him in that rotation, and they're built around him and Verlander to give them the best opportunity to win a World Series. I think those 2 guys definitely need to figure it out, though.
So We're looking at a situation right now where the team is obviously struggling. We are no longer in first place. What is it going to take? Who is going to be the leader on this team? And what's such a head scratcher is nobody kind of has stepped up during this slump. Usually you'd get a situation where Miguel Cabrera would hit a key 3-run home run, or Justin Verlander would give you a complete game, or someone in the bullpen would come out and give you some strong innings if the starters did not perform as well. But right now it just kind of seems like nobody's picking each other up. It just seems like if the starters are struggling, then at the same time the bullpen is giving up several runs. It seems like when our pitchers give us a good performance, our hitters are just not getting in the runs consistently. And it seems like just watching on the field that maybe they need to get back to basics. They maybe need to get back to doing the small things. Get a runner on base, hit and run, get runs aboard. And so, and also with the pitchers, it just kind of seems like they need to get ahead in the count and they need to make quality pitches. And in terms of consistency, I just think that if we can get on a winning streak, maybe win a series 3 out of 4 games, then I think we can right the ship. But if this continues, and especially this is what's concerning, you can't lose 3 games to Kansas City at home. That is really concerning, and that is really frustrating in terms of the fact that we're here in mid-June. We had such an unbelievable chance to get up 10 to 12 games ahead in the standings, and it didn't happen. You went from 27-12 now to basically being only 4 games above 500. That is an unbelievable slide in the last month, one that I can't recall. Have you ever recalled a Detroit team slumping this bad in one stretch of time?
Yeah, last year's Lions.
It always goes back to the Lions. You always got to bring them up. Okay,
all you had to do was win 2 games. We'd been playing in the playoffs.
Oh man, you bring back the dagger.
6-3, bro.
On this stormy night, you're gonna bring that up. Okay, you know what? Let's take a break and let's get some other opinions on what's going on with the Tigers. And we look forward to chatting with Jeff Deacon from Detroit Sports Nation and Denny Mclain later on in the podcast. So stay tuned. When we come back, we'll have Jeff Deacon from the Detroit Sports Nation talking Tigers. Stay with us. All right, everyone, joining us on the Detroit Sports Podcast. He writes for Detroit Sports Nation. He has great columns regarding the Tigers. Jeff Deacon. Jeff, what's going on this evening? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Man, it's been a tough week, man. At the end of our last podcast, I kind of slipped in a question to Adam, would we be in first place at the start of the next podcast? And Adam was like, just hanging on. Well, it didn't come true. The Tigers, in this set versus Kansas City, have lost the first 3 games, and now we're trailing Kansas City, the first time we've been out of first place early in the season. Just from your opinion, what is some of the biggest issues you've seen with the Tigers in this recent slide?
Well, the quick answer is pitching. Almost all season long, it's been a problem, starting with the bullpen in April and May, and continuing with the starters right on into June. But really, I think the biggest issue the Tigers have is that they haven't been able to put together a stretch where they've played a complete game. Their offense has been shut out 3 times in the past 3 weeks, so some nights bats aren't clicking. Some nights their bullpen has been a disaster. Joe Nathan's ERA is approaching 7. And their aces, quote-unquote aces, Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, are going through career worst stretches at the same time, and nothing really seems to be clicking right now. So I don't think it's just one issue. It's kind of a combination of, untimely hitting and just awful pitching from the starters right on through to the bullpen.
I understand. Let's just look at JV for a second. You know, some people were concerned a little bit that he was at the mall with Kate Upton just hours before an appearance. Some people are saying, you know what, he's working on his mechanics. Maybe he's high on the hog because of his big contract, that he maybe is not as focused as he should be. Just what are your thoughts about JV and what's been going on with his performances his last couple starts?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of people have been asking if maybe he's hurt. Maybe he's, like you said, thinking about the contract or Kate Upton. I don't buy any of that. The professional athletes have to be able to put aside their personal life and their team. So you gotta, kind of split those evenly. And, maybe he's still trying to figure out how, but I don't think he's hurt at all. In the past week, he said that he feels great. I just think that he has developed some very bad habits in his mechanics, and he and Jeff Jones are going to sit down, look at film, and try to fix them. If you guys remember, he had core muscle surgery this past offseason, and maybe that's where all these bad habits started to develop. But I know he's come on in recent days and has said that he feels great. I just think that he's getting older. He's 31. Pitchers, they don't throw 100 miles an hour, until they're 40 years old. So I don't think this is the beginning of a decline. He's just going to have to study film and figure out how to get hitters out without throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball past them.
Statistically, he's had such a drop-off. He's basically fallen off of a cliff. That's how big his drop-off has been from other seasons. Do you think we'll ever see a dominant JV again? Do you think he'll be an ace of this staff, or are his best days behind him?
That's a great question. It really depends on, first, if they can sign Scherzer, because right now he's looking more and more like the ace of the staff, even if he hasn't been pitching like it the past month or so. But I think we can see a dominant Justin Verlander again. Remember, before the stretch, he was cruising through hitters. He had great statistics up until that, horrible series against the Indians, where it all started with the whole Zubas, pants and the whole plane getting delayed and everything in Boston. But up until then, he was pitching a great season, and so was Max Scherzer. So I think it's just minor things that he has to tweak, but I definitely think that he can become a dominant pitcher in this game again.
Do you think that this losing streak would have ended maybe sooner if there was a different manager instead of Ausmus? If, say, maybe Leland was in the manager's chair?
I don't think so. I think fans would be yelling for Leland to be fired, just like they're currently yelling for Ausmus to be fired. The manager can only do so much. He sits on the bench for 9 innings, doesn't play, and I think he's got to leave it up to the veterans of the team, Victor Martinez, Torrey Hunter, guys like that, to kind of lead them out of their problems. So it's not going to be a popular strategy with fans, but that's really the reality of it. I know that Ausmus isn't on the hot seat at all, and I think fans who are kind of calling for his job are just searching for an easy excuse or an easy way out. If anyone's on the hot seat right now, it's going to be Jeff Jones because of the struggles the pitching has been having so far this season.
Do you think that leadership's inside that clubhouse is able to pull them out of this slump and get them back on a winning streak that might be able to offset this horrendous stretch that they've been through?
To an extent, I do. There's a ton of experience in that clubhouse. I mean, Torrey Hunter and Z-Mart they have gobs and gobs of experience. Combine that with Miguel Cabrera. I really do. Baseball is such a mental game, maybe similar to golf, but when you're struggling, you're really struggling. And I think Torrey and Victor can really lead them out of this slump. I know Torrey's kind of banged up right now, but once he gets back in the lineup, I think that he and Victor can really lead this team out of their current struggles. All
right, on Wednesday afternoon, Brad Ausmus said something that was maybe a little bit out of line. I'm not sure if you heard it or not, about the remark about how he handles the losing when he goes home and he beats his wife. What are your thoughts on that?
I had heard. I've seen the comment, and I've seen the video or the audio tape. There's really no excuse for that. He's taking a lot of heat from fans, from the media right now. He did apologize, so he apologized immediately, which he knew he said something wrong. But maybe it wouldn't be a bad thing for him to just take a day off and kind of reset the batteries, because it's after a comment like that, which is completely not like him at all. You really need to kind of take a step back and look at the bigger picture. And it's a long season. They're really going through some struggles right now, but there's no excuse for what he said today, and he's much smarter than that. So I think a lot of that comment was maybe drawn from the fact that they have been terrible the past month, going 9-20 and falling out of first place. And while the comment was totally inexcusable, he did apologize, and you have to take that into account. But yeah, definitely no excuse for that comment.
All right, so I know Ausmus is kind of a California guy. He's really laid back. But do you think this team would maybe respond if he walked into that locker room, maybe grabbed the water cooler, threw it, maybe flipped over a table, got in a couple players' faces, or maybe just said something through the media? Do you think that might help spark this team?
I don't know. I've been in locker rooms growing up where coaches have thrown a fit, and sometimes it's worked, sometimes it doesn't. I think with a veteran team like they have, you really don't need to do anything like that. You need to talk to them personally, talk to the guys as a group, and keep the media out of it. Keep it in the locker room. So I don't think he needs to do anything drastic like that and make a big scene out of it. It's just they're playing bad baseball, and there's really no other way to say it right now.
And Jeff, it looks like right now that Kansas City's on the verge of sweeping us in this 4-game set. Now, in the past few seasons, we've had our way with KC, and we've kind of been the big brother in the AL Central. How concerned are you with the offensive threat, and how concerned are you with KC, with their up-and-coming talent?
Well, I mean, Kansas City's been on for so long. I mean, going back, every year you look at the standings from, late 90s through the first decade of 2000, and they've been bad almost every single year. So, of course, they're going to pick up on some good talent eventually. They got some great hitters. Billy Butler's coming around, Mike Moustakas, Omar Infante is coming back to bite us in the rear end after we traded him away. 2 home runs in the series alone. So, yeah, I mean, am I surprised that they're good? Of course not. They've been able to stock up on draft picks, and we all kind of knew coming into the season that the Royals would really be the one team that could compete with the Tigers for the division crown, and right now they're proving that.
Jeff, let's look at something. JV is set to make $28 million for the next few seasons. Are you concerned that we've committed so much money to a pitcher in his 30s that it may hinder the progress of this team going forward in the future?
I'm a little bit concerned of mainly just the fact that we gave so much money to a pitcher who's 31. I mean, arms don't get stronger as they get older; they get weaker, and that's always been the case. So I think the contract they gave him was more due to the fact that he's been so good recently and maybe not going to be good in the future, which that can be debated for a long time. But I don't know. That's tough. He's been so dominant, winning the MVP and Cy Young and everything. Yeah, it's going to be. It's an uphill climb for Verlander right now. I can tell you that for sure.
Anibal Sanchez has been pitching very well for the last few starts, only to not come away with wins because of the bullpen and the lack of offensive production. How pissed do you think Anibal Sanchez is, and do you see the offensive production increasing when he's on the mound?
Yeah, he's definitely got the shaft plenty of times. He pitched a great game in Oakland. I remember watching that, and he got screwed again by Joe Nathan in the bullpen. You're not going to come out and say anything to the media or anything about that because it's a team game. You win as a team, you lose as a team. You got to be a team on the field and off the field. So he's quietly maybe he's a little upset, but at the same time, showing your frustration is not going to help at all. It's not going to. It's only going to escalate things in the clubhouse. And he's a veteran pitcher too. He's got I believe a no-hitter under his belt, so he has plenty of experience. And he knows the right ways to respond. He's a professional. But yeah, he has certainly gotten the short end of the stick plenty of times this year. But they just got to find a way to get offense in front of him. And he's going again, I believe, tomorrow. So, the offense just has to get a few runs for him. Right now, he's been the best pitcher in the Tigers so far this season.
Jeff, where do you see the Tigers finishing this regular season?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think if they can keep pace with the rest of the division, they definitely have a good chance to be a playoff team again. Cleveland's right on their tail. We got a big series coming up with them this weekend, so theoretically we could be in third place before the upcoming weekend is over. Travel is definitely in their favor. They only have one road trip that takes them west of Kansas City in the second half of the season, so that's obviously a good thing for a team that maybe is a little older than others. Add that to the amount of veterans they have on this team, and they still have the best hitter in the game in Miguel Cabrera, and the starting staff when they're on is arguably the best in the league. So adding in all that to account, I wouldn't count the Tigers out by any means this season. They can definitely be a playoff team, and as we've seen in other sports, if you make the playoffs, you have a good chance to win. So it's kind of where I see the Tigers finishing the year.
Do you think maybe inside that clubhouse and maybe up at the top with Dave Dombrowski in the front office, do you think maybe it's just kind of hang around until maybe the All-Star break, maybe just linger around somewhere right around first, second, maybe third, and then maybe make a move or two, and then just sit there and second half just try to blow everybody else away?
Well, it's not like David Dombrowski to do anything drastic. In the past, he's always made a move at the deadline. I think last year he got Jose Veras or another bullpen arm. I have no reason to see he won't do it again this year. I think that they'll definitely look for bullpen help, but that's the hardest part is finding bullpen help because every team, if they have one need, it's in the bullpen. So, and that just so happens to be the Tigers, probably their biggest need right now. But he'll sit back until the deadline. I don't expect any big moves other than bringing people up from the minors between now and the trade deadline in July. But after that, yeah, I think they'll kind of sit back and hopefully Verlander and Scherzer can find their arms again and get this offense going. Kinsler is kind of on a little bit of a slump right now, and I think that he'll come through. It's all mental with this team right now. They got to get past the hump of all the media talking about them and their fall from first place and But I don't see any drastic moves that need to be made right now by this team. They were still a great team in the first month of the season, and I think they're going to be a great team the rest of the way.
All right, Jeff, if you can tell our listeners where they can find you and read some of your great work.
Yeah, you can find us on me on Twitter at Jeff Deacon, and then Detroit Sports Nation on Facebook.com/Detroit Sports Nation, and you can also follow us on Twitter at DET Sports Nation for all of our live tweeting comments and other news from around the Detroit sports scene.
All right, Jeff, we appreciate you coming on, and we thank you very much for your insight. Look forward to having you on again.
Yep, thanks for having me on, guys.
Just want to thank Jeff Deacon again, thank the Detroit Sports Nation again for them providing us with great writers who have great insight. Thank you for coming on to the podcast. We really appreciate it.
And you can definitely check out their work at DetroitSportsNation.com. And we look forward to having many more of their writers talk about all things Detroit sports. That's why our collaboration with them has been great. And we look forward to having more of their writers on to talk about Detroit sports. I want to let everyone know out there, visit DetroitSportsPodcast.com for great deals on all things related to Detroit sports in terms of sports memorabilia, sports jerseys, hats, tickets, all things related to Detroit sports. You can find at our website at DetroitSportsPodcast.com. And if you want to leave us feedback on Twitter, you can follow us at Detroit Podcast. That's a great way. We are a growing sports community, and we really feel like we're one of the best follows out there. At Detroit Podcast, we banter with the fans, we throw out ideas, and we try to get insight regarding all things Detroit sports, and we really enjoy bantering with the fans. It's one of the reasons why we started this project, and we've had such a great time. So thanks again for all the support, all the funny comments, and all the feedback and follows on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. We really appreciate it. Thanks for the support. Adam and I really do appreciate it. Stay tuned. After the break, we are going to have a chat with Denny Mclain, and he's going to give us his insights regarding what is going on with this team and what are some of the ways we can maybe improve what we've seen in the last month.
Bringing to the show right now, we've got former Tiger great Denny Mclain. Denny, how have you been?
I've been terrific. Thank you very much. How are you guys?
Oh, we're good. We're good. Even better now that we got you on the podcast.
Well, thank you.
So these Tigers, what do you think's been the biggest issue with these guys in the recent slide?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, you got some guys fundamentally who've got out of whack as pitchers, the stars of the team. That happens once in a while. And when that happens, you got to go back to fundamentals. You got to figure out where you were, where you are, and what happened to cause their situation right now. But you can only do that by doing it the appropriate way, and I'm not sure if there's anybody with the organization right now that understands when a pitcher goes bad, it's supposed to be a star, it's supposed to be number one. There are things that you can do to find out why, and I'm not sure if they're doing those things. Number two, clubs go through these streaks. It happens once in a while. It's been a long time since we've seen anything this ugly. But on the other hand, they played well today. They just got outpitched. And, you got to take your hats off to the other guy from time to time, too. Plus, when we broke camp and came up north, we had fewer pitchers than most teams do in the league. I think they have found out that you got to have the appropriate number of pitchers. You don't need a shortstop or a second baseman coming in and pitching the last inning or two. The first time it was humorous, it was entertaining. The second time it was embarrassing. And that means you don't have enough pitchers on your team right now to keep your integrity together. So the bottom line is they need to shore up the pitching, and I think they shore that up, things will get better. When you go through these streaks, you just can't imagine all the bad hops and bad bounces, balls hit bases and things like that. It's just one of those things. But, if you don't have enough pitchers in this day and age, in other words, when that manager goes out every day, he's got to figure out what 4 pitchers is he going to use today. 4, not 1, 4. And I think that's the one area that Brad is having an issue with, because guys appear to me to be a little bit tired coming out of the dugout because they pitch so much. And so I think that's where he's got to make his movement. Plus, I think they're going to see some changes around here in the near future. I don't think there'll be, monster trades, but I think you're going to see some changes to to get some help for the ball club. Change is good when you're playing like this.
How much of these issues do you think are Brad Ausmus's fault? You said that.
Oh, I don't know. I it's tough to blame it on Brad, but the buck is supposed to stop at the manager's desk, and I think he's accepted that. But on the other hand, if people just think about what got you to the dance, you go home with who you brought to the dance. And I suspect right now we're not doing that. We're not running bases all of a sudden. We're not hitting and running all of a sudden. You got to go back to the basic fundamentals and start to manufacture a run, not 4 runs with a grand slam, not a 3-run homer. Manufacture a run, and once somebody does it, 2 guys do it, the game will get back in the rhythm that they're supposed to be. Or on the other hand, as I stated when they came out of spring training, and everybody thought they would have it all clinched by the end of May, for God's sakes, I said, listen, it's 162 games, bad things happen, and I'm not sure if this club is anywhere near as good as the club was last year, because you lost 2 stars. Pfister, who I thought was the second-best pitcher. He was the best pitcher on the team, but he had the second-best stuff, I think, on the team behind Verlander. Number 2, we lost the big guy that was hitting behind Cabrera. Cabrera is now still going to hit his numbers, but Cabrera is not going to be pitched to like he once was because you had the big guy behind him. So, and Martinez may be having the year of his life at this point in time, especially for his age, but he's not the threat that the other guy, Fielder, was. So you're going to pitch more to Martinez than you would have Fielder, and Fielder would have gotten, I think, at this point in time, he'd hit a whole bunch of home runs again, despite I think he's been hurt, and of course he's had some other issues. But when they gave up to those 2 guys, they really gave up a lot. People, maybe we're just starting to see what we gave up. And then number 2, we did get a star in here, a legitimate star who I've always liked, was Kinsler. And I think I think he could be a Hall of Fame player eventually one day.
I want to go back to Verlander a little bit. He's a hot button topic, especially with the fans. What do you think are his issues? Is it just mechanics with him?
It's always mechanics. Listen, I mean, people are saying, well, he's got Kateism. In other words, the gal that he's going out with,
like
Kate Upton, he may have Kateism. Listen, he may be madly in love, and, he's got $240 million coming, and I don't know, maybe the intensity isn't there the way it once was before he got that kind of money and before he fell in love. You never know. But on the other hand, I know this, if you throw the ball down the middle and you hang curveballs and you hang sliders, nothing good can happen. And when that starts happening, you've got a fundamental problem with your delivery, and he may not be consistently in the right place with his rotation and with his pitching delivery. I think one of the things I've noticed, which is pretty evident, all of a sudden he's moving his head quite a bit. And there isn't a sport in the world, and where we hear this the most is in golf, but if your head moves, nothing ever happens good when your head starts moving. And I think that could be one of the problems with Justin, that his head is moving all over the place.
Do you think we've seen the best of Verlander, or does he have another 2012 season in him?
I can answer it this way. Nobody gets better after the age of 30 or 31. Find me a pitcher, unless it was a freak like Nolan Ryan, 1 or 2 of those guys, that ever got better after the age of 30 or 31 if he wasn't on some kind of a juice. And you know what I mean when I say juice, injectable juice, drinking juice, pills, and whatever. So very few people have ever gotten better after the age of 30 or 31. That's why everybody was so shocked when they gave him that much money at the age of 30. I mean, it's a big-time investment for a guy, despite the fact that, everybody's talking about his velocity is still about the same. His velocity is not the same, and his movement on the ball is not the same. So he's got to go back to fundamentals and put it all back together. And, he's a smart kid, and if it's not Kateism, I think he'll get it together.
Okay, Denny, I want to ask you this. Much was made about a picture that was taken via Twitter showing Justin Verlander and Kate Upton, shopping around 3 o'clock on a day that he was scheduled to pitch. Now, it wasn't confirmed actually when the picture was taken, but I want to ask you, on a day that you were pitching, what was your preparation like? And if he was at the mall around 3 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game, is that any source of concern for you?
No, it's no concern for me. I mean, listen, it's his life, it's his money, and it's his girlfriend. I mean, if that's what and I think it was either her or his birthday. So, I mean, maybe it was a special day. I mean, maybe they celebrated in any number of ways that we shall not go into in detail here. But, most pitchers would not, trying to be very careful here, but most pitchers who pitch normally do not become very active the night before you pitch. It may be a true story, it may not, but I can tell you experience-wise that I seldom ever participated in any activity the night before I pitched, and when I did, I normally wasn't as effective as I normally was the other way, abstaining. So, who knows? I mean, different people can do different things, but now that doesn't alarm me. And I, anybody's going to make a story out of anything, especially when you're going bad. And he's certainly not very effective right now. So everybody's going to take their shots. And I heard somebody say, well, they should throw him in a bullpen. And let me say this to you, that is not the worst idea anybody could hear, because I remember Mickey Lolich in 67 and 68 being tossed into the bullpen because he was so ineffective for a while. And then, of course, he came back. He got his fundamentals back, became a real good pitcher in the month of late August and September. And what did he do? He won 3 games in the World Series. So it happens to everybody. We all lose it from time to time.
Are the Tigers going to come to regret this $28 million contract over the next 5 years?
And it's not our money. I always laugh when I hear something. Well, I'd have never paid him $20 million. I mean, here's a guy making $20,000, $25,000 a year on a radio, criticizing the Tigers for paying somebody $20 million a year, and the club earns $1 billion a year, whatever the hell they earn. But it always amazes me that somebody. And listen, I did radio and TV for a long time, and the bottom line simply is, who cares? It's great hot stove information. It's great hot stove controversy and debate. But the bottom line is, we're not the ones that write the check, so it shouldn't affect us. And I suppose a lot of it's dog and pony show for being on the air. We've all done it. But the bottom line is, listen, it's not my money. It's not your money, and so I don't have to worry about it, although I'd like to be paid it, to be honest with you. I mean, I just loved an opportunity to earn. Hell, somebody said, what would it be worth today if you had the 5 years in a row that you had with the Tigers in the 60s? I said, I don't know, but I would ask for a partnership of some kind, because, when you become the number one guy in a club, you can ask for a whole lot more than normally than what they're willing to give you. But on the other hand, they'll give you something. And listen, $20 million a year, it'd be nice to have to break even on $20 million a year, wouldn't it?
All right, so Anibal Sanchez has pitched quite a few gems this season, only to see the bullpen blow it for him. How upset should Anibal be with the bullpen?
You know how you fix that? With Sandoval not getting the wins in some of these games? You know how you fix it?
How?
Pitch 9. Grow up. Pick up your pants and tell the manager you want to finish the game. This is where good managers really make their money. They go out to the mound, and what they say to themselves, and to themselves normally, they'll say, am I better off with the guy I've got on the mound right now, regardless of pitch counts, or do I have a better guy in the bullpen that can come in here and shut anybody down? I think it's an easy question to answer. Sanchez is pitching the best in his career. He came over here under 500, and he's become a very good pitcher. Let him pitch. Let him pitch 9 innings. That's what this club needs. It needs a good kick in the ass right now, somebody who's going to take the ball, run with it, and go ahead and win a ball game in 9 innings. Forget this stuff in the bullpen. If the guy you start is pitching 7 innings, 8 innings of good baseball, why would you want to take him out? I don't get it. Because the game says, well, they can only throw 100 pitches. A win is more than 100 pitches is worth. A win is worth a lot more, and especially right now in the streak that they're in.
How upset would you have been, or how upset were you when you turned over a game and you seen the bullpen blow it?
Well, it happened to me one or two times in 68. No, one time in 68 it happened to me. I had a 1-0 lead. It was, as a matter of fact, I'd already won 31. And I was on the verge of winning 32. I had a 1-0 lead after the 8th inning in a ball game. And now I pitched 336 innings as of that moment that year. And Mayo Smith, our manager, came up to me and says, listen, I'm going to take you out. I'm going to have Don McMahon come in, and he's going to pitch the 9th inning. And you pitched enough. Let us get you a little extra rest. I says, wait a minute. I said, I pitched 336 innings, and now the last inning of this season that I'm pitching, you want me to rest? Are you kidding? He says, and we had a hell of an argument. I said, no. I said, listen, I got this one done. It's 1-0. I got Howard up, I think, in the 9th inning, and I said, Frank hasn't got a hit off me since Jeremiah was a bullfrog. So he says, no, I'm taking you out. You're not winning this argument. You've won every argument this year. Let me win one. So, and I said, are you really bringing in Don McMahon? He says, yes. I says, Mayo, God bless you. I said, but I don't get somebody, but not McMahon. And I'm not the manager. I'm just trying to protect my win like any pitcher would. And he brings in Don McMahon. Don walks the guy. Frank Howard comes up, hits a 2-run homer. We lose the ball game 2-1. That's what can really irritate the hell out of you. You got to control your own destiny. Absolutely control your own destiny, and that's one of the reasons why he's not a bigger winner. I mean, and it's not his fault. Don't misunderstand me. But, every once in a while you got to stand up for yourself and say, listen, Coach, I'm okay. I can pitch 3 more outs. I can pitch 1 more inning. If I load the bases, bring somebody in, but give me a shot to finish this ball game. I think that's the right thing to do.
Tough way to lose 32 wins. So on that, Denny, we want to thank you. Thank you for coming back onto the Detroit Sports Podcast. I know our listeners enjoy your insight. I know we enjoy your insight. Thank you for talking with us again.
You guys have a great evening, and guys keep up the good work, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, you.
Denny. Take it
Bye-bye.
easy. Just want to thank Denny Mclain for coming on again. He's been a friend of the podcast before, and he'll be a friend of the podcast going forward. Denny Mclain always giving great insight, never afraid to hold his tongue, even though he sat there and backed off a little bit about having intercourse. We still appreciate Denny Mclain coming on.
But while he backed off, Adam and I, we have no restrictions. Cuz, do you agree with what he said? Do you think that, getting laid before a big game will affect an athlete's performance? You think that's what's going on with JV? Is that he's just getting laid way too much, and then he just, he might not have the leg strength needed to pitch 9 strong innings?
That might be the case. I don't know. Here's the thing. I know before I go play, especially before I go play hockey, like the day of, I won't have sex, I won't jerk off, I won't do any of those things. Not the day of. Night before, maybe. But the day of, oh, definitely. Especially when the third period rolls around, you feel all rubber-legged and you feel tired. Yeah, you definitely don't want to do that. Boxers have been doing it for years. Boxers usually the week of their fight, they won't sit there and they won't do anything. Same thing with fighters. Week of, they abstain from everything. Not doing none of that stuff. Most definitely. I like how I made you slightly uncomfortable because I brought up jerking off. You're sitting like, no.
I don't want to be thinking about that while I'm doing this podcast.
As I'm sitting in front of a stack of Playboys.
You always got to have the Playboys around. I got 10 years worth, so I got to find them. You can't just put them on eBay.
Over half of them have pages that are glued together.
I did. Thanks for outing me, thanks for outing me, man. I really appreciate it. It's all good, man. Well, this has been another great podcast, cuz too much information. TMI all the time on the Detroit Sports Podcast.
We're trying to keep it real, man.
We can't help ourselves. Diarrhea of the tongue just always happens. When you put a mic in front of Doc and Jock, things come out of our mouths that maybe aren't supposed to. But luckily we have this great forum, and luckily we have great fans like you guys out there downloading this every Thursday. We really appreciate it. Thank you for downloading the Detroit Sports Podcast. We'll see everyone next week. Thank you very much.
You can call me Freddie Tugboat. Go U.S. men's national team.
The bar is high. Hell, it's even higher. It's even higher.
You can call me Freddie Tugboat. Freddie Tugboat. I have an issue with my penis. I won't jerk off. He just needs to be tweaked a little bit.
Cuz, here's to you, buddy. Coors Light, just for you.
Oh,
Cheers.
Thanks.